I've put there, can the workload be shared? Because as I've kind of referred to with often requests of line managers, their first thing to do, if they notice a skill gap or they notice perhaps an increase in workload, perhaps a project comes on board that they are they're just engaged with, the first thing to do is, right, we need somebody new, we need somebody on board, blah, blah, blah. Actually, do we? You know, is Sarah and John and Leslie fully up to capacity, or perhaps are they maybe at 75%, and so that job could be shared out? Again, that's really important to look at when budgeting, and a lot of management teams, a lot of director teams would be really wanting to know that that workload is there for one person, and that it's not an option to share the workload between a team. And as an HR professional, you should, when thinking about recruitment and thinking about a new role, you should always be having to think about whether that's a possibility or not. It will be very credible to you if you do. Setting the salary right. So of course, obviously we've just mentioned about, you know, bargaining power and whether the candidate can. It's lovely, isn't it? Whether the candidate has got the power to be able to perhaps hold the business at ransom for a bit more money. But really, are you paying the right salary for that skill? And it's always good to do a benchmarking activity. So whether you go through a recruitment agency and you sort of say, have a look at this role for me, I want to know, am I targeting that at the right level? They might do that for you, or you could go and look into doing a bit of a benchmarking activity yourselves. So it would be a case of sort of going on the local job boards and having a look at historic data as well around salaries. Usually if you type in on Google, salary benchmarking for an IT, well, so let's say business systems specialist, that you would get some data around what the kind of the local salary is for that. And also, have you heard of Haze Recruitment? Yeah, maybe. Yeah. So it's kind of a blue haze writing. I can show you the logo of it, but you probably get to know them quite well if you do progress into HR or equally recruitment. Haze are a massive organisation that are global. They're all over the world, and they recruit obviously into businesses and engage with organisations for recruitment. Haze also do salary benchmarking activities, so they issue a huge manual, and they tailor it to local regions. So we'd have probably one that would cover maybe Derby, Nottingham, maybe Manchester or maybe Birmingham for salaries. So you'd look at what the average salary, you look in there what the average salary is for a HR person, you know, HR BP or HR manager or something like that, and it would give you a bit of a guide. I would always say, a bit of advice, just take those sorts of documents with a pinch of salt. Bear in mind that recruiters are always after a bit of commission. So there's always going to be a commission involved with that, and they would be pitching that probably at a level that would include what they would recommend, and obviously they add on their commission level to the salary for that. So always worth bearing in mind. Very good. They're very, it's very useful. It's very, very handy to have and to review, and I'd always recommend using it, but just be mindful of it. And then finally, I've got some ideas around alternatives. So it's always good to have a good think about any alternatives, as opposed to simply just recruiting a new bod into the business, a new overhead. Don't forget, as a business, we always have to report on overheads. So always try and think about other options. Have we got somebody in another team that's doing really, really well and actually might just be getting a bit itchy feet and wants to develop, wants to move into something else? Could be part of their succession plan. Or equally, somebody might just be in an area that they've kind of been pigeonholed into a job, and they're not quite where they're comfortable sitting. They would like to do something else. It's always worth having a look at the skills within the business, and that's why a lot of businesses provision internal recruitment before they go external. So particularly within my business, we advertise internally for 2 weeks before we then go external, unless it's something that we absolutely know we have not got. It's a specialist skill, we definitely have not got what we absolutely require for that role, but that's certainly an exception to the rule. Secondment. So have you heard of a secondment before? Familiar with the secondment? So a secondment would be where you would move somebody out of their current role and temporarily place them into another position. That can be a new position, or it can be to backfill a leaver potentially, but a secondment is a short-term fix, and usually based around a project or perhaps a pilot to see how a role can progress. Or equally, if you weren't quite sure if it was a full-time role or a part-time role, you might kind of pilot it with a secondee, and be very transparent about that with that secondee, and say to them, look, this is something that we're piloting, we want to know if it works, so we'd like you to be seconded into that position, and obviously with their will and obviously good intentions as well.